Hi, I'm Stephen Hand from Archery Supplies. I'm here today to do a review on the SF, which is from Win & Win, Forged Recurve bow. It's a very popular bow from Win & Win or Sebastian Flute. And I want to run through the different range of recurves you've got at this price point, how to adjust this bow, how to string this bow, different types of limbs available for the bow, and basically shooting a recurve. So I want to start off with about this bow. This is a forged riser. This riser is anodized and it comes in a whole bunch of colors behind me, which we'll just go through. So you start off with the black up the top. Now this bow is priced at the beginner market, beginner intermediate. This is a forged riser, so it's one of the strongest risers made. So you can use the fastest limbs made on this bow and it will not crack. Bows under this, cast risers like the SF Premium, a whole bunch of Hoyts, there's a whole bunch of people who do cast risers. You can't shoot top performance limbs with them because you will crack them, you'll fatigue them. So this is forged. It's also anodized so the bow doesn't scratch. Its retail on this bow is around $300 odd. This is what we call sky blue. It's a very pretty blue. Now my bow, I've been shooting SF Forged for about 5 years and there's not a mark on it. Now I give my bow to people to shoot. I give it out for people to shoot in the practice range. I let people borrow my bow and there's not a mark on it. So the blue anodized, which is very pretty. It comes in a dark grey and a light grey. It also comes in silver, which you'll see behind me on the wall. Now some quick things about this bow. It comes with a plunger button and a arrow rest, a little flipper arrow rest. This little thing here is for your clicker button. It comes with an extension. You have to buy a clicker button if you want one. This bow allows you to adjust the poundage. So your poundage is adjusted through loosening off this bolt on the back, and then you just wind it in or wind it out using this bolt on the front. And that basically, it's like a compound bow that allows you to adjust the poundage. Now you can also adjust with this bow, and I've never done it, the position of the limbs left and right. So if you're getting tilt on your limbs, now you shouldn't have to do it, but you'll see there's a little bracket, a little screw, and that's adjusted through the side here. So that little bolt there on the side, you just screw that in and out and that moves this left and right. Now you should never have to do it, and if you're having to do it, I suggest you've probably got a problem, but the ability is there to do that if you want to adjust how your string is sitting on the limbs. This takes all interchangeable limbs, so basically every limb made fits in this riser, and there's going to be obviously limbs which don't fit this, but the majority of the limbs and every limb I know which is made fits in this riser, and that's, you know, any international fitting limb. So it just basically clips in, and it's got a little spot there for the limb to fit in. So the riser is available in 25 inch and 23 inch left and right handed. Now going down from your SF Forged, you've got the SF Premium. Now this is a cast riser and it's also a painted riser. Price point on this is about $250, so about $50 cheaper. Now for $50, what you're getting, same hand grip on both of these bows, what you're getting is a forged riser, so twice the strength in the riser, which may or may not be an issue for you, and I suggest it's probably not going to be because you're not going to use expensive limbs in this bow. But you're going from a paint finish to an anodized finished. And to me, that's worth $50. So if I take my bow, like I said, this bow's 5 years old. It sits on the floor in my shooting range. Many people have taken this home and shot it. It's been shot by Olympians. There is not a mark on this riser anywhere. You can see some little marks where arrows come through here, but that's I can rub those off. That's just the vanes. It's immaculate. Now that's 5-6 years old. If you had that in a paint, it would be chipped and scratched. So to me, the $50 extra is well worth it. If you want to go under that in price, you're dropping back to the Axiom, SF Axiom riser, which is a cast riser again. A little bit cheaper, around $200 to $100 cheaper. Still has all the standard fittings, your limb adjustment left and right, poundage adjustment, everything the same. It's just a cheaper riser, so this is based on budget. Now what I find is people either go for an SF Forged riser or they jump right up to the top line risers. Something like this is the Win and Win Inno Max, so it's a machined. It's a carbon riser. It's designed to take the top line limbs, so basically it won't break on you. It's got a pretty paint job, but with a paint job, once again, if you don't look after it, it's going to scratch and chip, and I wouldn't lend this bow to, and I wouldn't have it on my shooting range for everyone to shoot because it would get damaged. But it's a beautiful paint job. You've got a wood grip as opposed to a plastic grip. And you can buy a wood grip for the Forged riser, which is just there. But you're looking at around, ballpark numbers, $800 odd for the Inno Max. And this is the latest YWIS, so 2015, and they still make all those other bows, but this is the latest. I think you're up around the $900. Carbon riser. I personally don't find a lot of difference in any of these risers as far as vibration. For me, it comes to the limbs, the limb I'm fitting to my bow. But it's a beautiful riser, and if you're going to go to national championships and you practice a lot, you're generally going to shoot an expensive riser. Not that it'll improve your archery. Now what I want to go through is the limbs that are available for this bow and the choices you're going to have in limbs. I'm going to start off with the cheapest ones first. This is the premium limb, fiberglass. So fiberglass on the outside, wood core. Now the problem with these limbs is because you have wood, you've got the possibility these limbs will twist. So if you twist the limb, or if you string the limb around string the bow around your legs, as I'm told many coaches in the clubs tell you to do, which you should never do, you've got a good chance of twisting this limb and basically wreck your limb. So, and if you string your bow around your leg, you'll put a twist in the limb and you've got a good chance of cracking the limb. Now I know when people string their bows around their legs because the crack occurs sideways, so the crack comes from here down to here. And I can even tell which way you're standing when you did it because the crack will run in the direction of your leg. Now, I know there are many coaches who suggest this. I know there's clubs who suggest stringing around your leg. I'm not one of those people, and I repair bows. And as a result, I would say 95%, so almost all of the repairs I do on recurves are people stringing them around their legs. So please don't do it. I'm going to show you how to use a bowstring, and they're not very expensive, about $10, and you'll never break your limb. So wood limb. Price point of this, about $130, $150. Now the limb I use, and we'll just take these limbs out. So they just click in and they click out. So this is still a fiberglass limb, and you've got a foam core here. Now I choose this because it basically won't twist on me, not affected by weather. So I prefer the foam, about $200 odd on this limb. Now I've used this limb for 5 years. It's got some marks where it sits on the concrete. But overall it's a great limb, never had a problem with it. And I've sold literally hundreds of these limbs, and with the foam limbs, I'm going to say I've never had one replaced. That's hundreds of limbs I've sold. I've had a person return one once because he said it was twisted, and it was actually his bow, because we fit it to another bow and it was actually his bow. He was using a different type of bow and his bow was not set up correctly, but he returned it to us. But like I said, none have been returned. Premium carbon. So it's got carbon on the outside, wood on the inside. So a little bit faster, but you've still got the wood issue on the inside. And this is sort of priced about the same price as the foam limb. Higher quality, obviously glass, as opposed, carbon as opposed to fiberglass. But around the $250 mark. Then you go up to carbon on the outside and foam on the inside. You're talking about another $50. So you're up about $300 for these limbs, and this is a carbon foam limb. Then after that, if you're really serious, top of the line Win and Win limbs. And I'm picking Win and Win. Now I'm going to talk about recurves a little bit just for a second. Now with selling recurves, I used to have a 50% failure rate on recurves. Win and Win is an excellent bow company. They win lots of world records, lots of Olympic records. My failure rate with Win and Win is minimal. So it's very, very rare that someone will ring up and say, I've got a problem with a Win and Win. So anyway, the top of the line, $800 odd. It's carbon, it's nanocarbon inside, so it affects, basically when the limb shoots, it tends to go straight instead of going off to the side like this. It's basically faster, they use better materials in it. $800 odd. If you're going to go once again to the Nationals, World Championships, you're not going to go with $300 set of limbs, you're going to go with an $800 set of limbs. Now, on this point, I used to coach juniors in my club and the state level. One of my kids was like national indoor champion, 30 meters is excellent. He went to the Nationals with lower quality equipment, got kicked at 70 meters, absolutely, blowing out the park. When he comes in closer at 30 meters, he wins. But overall, he loses, because at 70 meters, you cannot compete unless you've got high quality, fast arrows and limbs on a recurve bow. And if you watch any of my other videos, I talk about compound bows. They're all very similar, and they are. A $400 bow is very similar to a $1,000 bow, not on recurves. If you want to compete and you want to be competitive, you need fast arrows, you need good quality bits. You also need good technique. But if you find you're competitive at the short distance and you're lacking at long distance, that tends to be a speed issue. And he was. And eventually when he got top of the range limbs and top of the range arrows, he went through to win and became national champion and shot Australian records. But he had to have good quality gear. And it was a bit unfortunate he went to that Nationals. I mean, he won some things at the Nationals, but he totally got blitzed at 70 meters, which is a bit daunting, when his arrows are traveling like this and other people's are shooting quick. And it wasn't a poundage thing. His poundage was the same as the other kids. It was just his arrows weren't as light, they weren't as good quality, and the limbs weren't as good. So if you're going to get serious on it, get some decent quality limbs. They're going to cost you around $800. Now, on my bow, now I don't train enough with a recurve. I don't train. If you want to be good with a recurve, you've got to shoot every day. You've got to practice. You've got to build the strength. And it doesn't matter if you're doing weights. You need to draw this bow back. You don't need to shoot. You need to draw the bow back every day. So this bow is quite suitable for me because I'm not at competition level. I'm not shooting every day. If I was to shoot every day and I was to shoot competitions, there's no question I'd go and buy a $2,000 recurve. Top of the line, Win and Win. Top of the line's Win and Win limbs. But this is my setup. So I've got a forged riser, about $300. I've got foam limbs, about $200. I've got top of the line Win and Win carbon sight. I like this because it doesn't come loose. It's lightweight. Price point on this is about $250, I'm going to guess. I've got better quality stabilizers on here. Now, part of that is due to the fact they were red. That's very technical. My son shot red stabilizers, and I think these are leftovers from one of his bows. And I think the red looked it seemed to pop on this riser. The riser itself is quite boring, being the dark grey, but with the red stabilizers I thought it looked good. So it wasn't very technical, but these are better quality stabilizers. They are worth ballpark HMCs from Win & Win, probably $150 for the long rod, $80 for the short rods. A cheap V-bar here, $25. I've got a carbon clicker, Win & Win, about $35. I've gone for carbon because you can't bend it. So if you shoot through the clicker's still intact. So I've gone for that. Basic wrist sling, because I find that simple as opposed to a finger sling, which is slow. I shoot a better quality string, so a fast flight string on this bow. So I'm going to string this bow, and then we're going to go and just have a couple of shots with this bow. So we'll take you through the stringing. So first thing, we need a string. Now with the recurve string, you have two ends, obviously. You have a small loop and a big loop. The big loop goes over the end of the limb and the top limb. So the big loop goes over the top of you slide it down the limb like so. The bottom goes onto the end of the limb, like so. And that slides up like so. Now the bow stringer I use, this is a cartel bow stringer. I call it a tip-to-tip stringer. It's got a little small loop and a big loop. Now these go over the limb tips. So little one goes over the top. And you can still see I've got room around the top to get my string on. This bow stringer, like I said, it's about $10, might be $12, but you know. The big one actually covers the entire limb tip down the bottom. Now all I do is I stand on this, I stand on the string and I lift it up. It's really easy to do, and I fully suggest using one. So we're going to run down there. So I stand on this string. So I stand on the string and just lift the bow up, and I slide the string up. Now, the first thing you do, if you haven't done this correctly, this limb could come and hit you in the eye. So you don't check from this side. We always check from the back. And what I'm checking from the back is just there. I want this to be on there. And once I check the top's the most critical because the top one's the one, I check the bottom. So I pull the little cap off the back and I check the back there, and you just check to see if it's on the two little grooves there, which it is. So that's a recurve strung. You can't twist the limbs, you can't damage yourself, you can't hurt anybody or do any damage. And if you're a kid or a lady, you can string your bow, it doesn't matter on the poundage. Now on poundage, the question I get asked the most is, what poundage bow should I buy? Now that's up to you. I have guys who ring up. There was a guy on Friday, he said I could bench press 300 kilograms, which is fantastic, because that'd make him about a world champion. But female Korean recurve shooters shoot 42 pounds. Okay, the men shoot about 42, 44 pounds. An average guy at an archery club will be shooting around 36 pounds. Men beginners will start at about 25, 26 pounds. The average lady will start at a little bit above 20 pounds, and she'll progress to around 32, maybe 30 pounds. That's an average person. Now, there are obviously people who are stronger and people who are less strong. So that's a gauge. So if you're a guy, an average guy, you're going to probably want to start around the high 20s, like 25, 26, 20, 28. If you go high, you're going to fatigue. Now, this bow, I'm going to guess, is about 34 pounds. And I fatigue with this. Now, I can shoot a 70-pound bow. I go to the gym. I still fatigue. It's like doing... I resemble this to doing squats at the gym. If you're doing squats, you might be able to squat 200 kilos once. But if you're going to do like 10... it's a little bit harder than doing one. And I did a pump class at the gym, and I thought I was one of 3 guys in the class, and I thought I was pretty strong at the time. And I put 10 kilos on each bar or 20 kilos on each bar, the very lightweight for what I normally squat. And the instructor said, oh, you might want to drop that down because it's my first class. And I was like, no, I'm really strong, thinking I'm stronger than all these girls in the class. And I did about 10 squats and I was in pain. My legs were hurting, my body was hurting, I was ready to cry. All these girls are pumping these squats out like it's nothing, and I was just burning in pain. So this is pretty much the same. You might be able to draw it back once, you might be able to draw it back twice, but once you've done it 70 times, the fatigue will set into your muscles. And it's the repetition. It's aerobic exercise you need. So your muscles will fatigue and your technique will start to drop. And what will happen when you start to shoot, this elbow here will start to rise, and you'll start to do this, and your draw length will become shorter, and you'll be trying to pull it, and the arrows are becoming much longer, obviously, because you can't get it through the clicker, and that's fatigue. Like I shoot not a bad 30 arrows. I shoot a pretty good 1 or 2 arrows, but the fatigue thing sets in, and that's just because I'm not shooting enough. So when you look at poundage, always think about how much you're going to shoot, and I always recommend go lower. You can wind your bow up on the limbs here. Limbs are pretty cheap. If the bow's too heavy, you're going to develop poor technique, and you're going to basically never progress in the sport because you need good technique. A few years ago, we had a Korean coach come to Australia, and he took the best archers in to the AIS. The first thing he did was give everyone a 20-pound bow, and they had to shoot this 20-pound bow to get their technique perfect. And that's what Koreans do. You shoot a very lightweight bow, get your technique perfect, and then you gradually build up, maintaining a good technique. And that's what I suggest. So many guys will go, oh, I want to shoot 36 pounds or 38 pounds. That's not what I recommend. Shoot light, get the technique perfect, and then go up in poundage. Because limbs, even the wood limbs, are about $130. It's going to take you a while to build up and build that aerobic strength up. You will shoot better with a higher poundage bow because the arrow comes off the string better, it shoots quicker, but it doesn't help you if you're going to develop bad technique. So you'll shoot a better score, yes, but you'll never develop into an archer of quality. So I always suggest lighter, but it's up to you what you sort of go for. Length, an average guy, I'm about 5'10", 5'11". An average guy will be 68 inches. A taller guy will be 70 inches. 5'8", 66 inch. Now the difference in length of the bow, the taller the bow, the less finger pinch you'll get on your fingers, and also the longer bows are a bit slower because they have a bigger brace height. So a 66 inch bow is faster than a 70, which is why if you're short, you don't want a 70 inch bow. But if you're tall, let's say you're 6.5 foot, you don't probably want a 66 inch bow because you're going to get too much finger pinch. Also, you're going to work these limbs harder. And working the limbs, if you shoot a bit, and these are, remember, these are fiberglass limbs, these are fiberglass foam limbs. These are not a high quality fiberglass, these are a low quality fiberglass. High quality fiberglass is more expensive. Now, I haven't busted any, but with time they would fatigue. If you're a 6.5 foot and you're shooting 66 inch, you would fatigue these limbs eventually and you will break the fiberglass. On the outside of the fiberglass, it's stretching. On the inside, it's compressing. Eventually, you'll get splinters occurring in the limb. So if you just stick to that rule of thumb, if you're tall, 70, average 68, 66 otherwise. So we're going to shoot this, and I just want to talk about shooting technique. and sort of we'll see how it goes. Thanks. Okay, so we're at the shooting range. First thing I want to go through is the finger tab. I'm shooting an SF tab. It's very economical, this tab. It's got a shelf, it's got a finger spacer and this little finger thing here. I never used to shoot with one of these, but I really enjoy it. The reason I like it, because when I'm shooting, what people will generally do, especially with the compounds, they'll twist their hand out as they anchor. They'll sort of go like this and pull their hand out. That's what's most common, because they're raising this elbow here and they're pulling that out. What this does, the little finger, is it puts your tension into your hand and stops you pulling this finger out. So I find it quite comfortable and I enjoy it. This finger tab comes in blue black. I think it's about $20–25. Nice and cheap. There's a higher quality, which is Cardovan, which is probably around $45, but a nice little tab. My arrows for recurve archery that I'm currently using is the Carbon Express Medallion XR. These are specifically made for recurve archery. They come in so many sizes to cater for all the recurves. They're very light, solid carbon. Obviously a hole in the center. They use medallion points. I'm shooting pins at the end and Soma Nox. These are little Vaintech vanes. I would prefer spin wings or the XS spin wing equivalent. It's just these are simple, they stick on, they work. Spin wings, you're subject to more maintenance, more repairs. These arrows I've been using now for I think about 5 years. I still have my original 12. I haven't refletched them. Some will be missing some veins, as in there, but they work and it's fine. Now with the grip for a recurve, what is critical with the grip is not that. So most beginners will grip their bow like that. That's not what you want, okay? Grip is critical. You want your knuckles at 45 degrees like so, and the pressure point on the grip is that point there. So basically it sits like that in your hand. That's the grip you want, okay? You don't want to grip this bow. If you grip it, you create torque. You want this bow just to relax out of the string. So when I coach people, the most important things I look for is this position here. And what I'm looking for is the arrow to be above this shoulder. I'm looking for, ideally both these shoulders to be in the same sort of line. So I'm not looking for someone to tilt back. And I want this draw arm to be in the same line as the arrow. And when I say the same line, not down low, not up high, not excessively up high. And some people can shoot up high quite successfully, but that's not what I sort of coach. I try and have everything in the same line. I try and have the hand in the same line as the... So when I draw, if I'm in a straight line, a lot of people will have their elbow out to the side like this. I try and want it in the same line as the arrow like that. The reason for that is when you release the arrow, you want your hand to come straight back. If you have your elbow out to the side, what you tend to do is your hand comes out to the side like that and you pull your arrows left and right. So I want everything in the same line. Now, one thing I love about recurve archery is the challenge of it to get your technique perfect. With a compound, pretty much you can take a compound, any basic compound, release some carbon arrows in 2 to 3 weeks, you can be a great shot. I mean, I coached a guy on the weekend. He'd been shooting for, I think, about 4 weeks. And he said, I need some, help. He comes to the shooting range, starts shooting the indoor distance. I sort of score his arrows. He goes 10, 10, 10, 9 with a hunting bow. A little 29-inch hunting bow. I'm like, well, that would score at around, mid 295 out of 300, which would put you as one of the best archers in this state. And he'd been shooting for about, his technique was pretty good. But, no scope, hunting bow, short little stumpy stabilizer, and I'm thinking to myself, I wonder what score I'd shoot with my target bow. But my point is, it's not going to happen with a recurve. Recurves take a long time to be good with. They take a long time to develop the muscles, a long time to develop the technique. So this is a long time, a lot of practice. So we're going to shoot this. I set up the clicker. Now, one thing when I set up a recurve, the arrow's on the string at 90 degrees. Now, when I look down here, I line up the string with the center of the grip, which is the center point through here. I'll try and set up there. So the string goes through the center point, center of the grip, and I want the arrow point slightly to the left of the string. It encourages the arrow to fly away from the bow. Otherwise, it's going to come in and strike the arrow rest. You're going to get veins marking your rest. You should have no marks on your bow whatsoever. So I'm just going to take this shot. What I look for in the shot is my arm to come straight back. And I had this saying the other day, cut your throat. So when you release, you want to go across your throat. I've never heard that before. Someone told it to me. I tend to have my fingers come back behind my neck. And I want to be like a statue. So basically I'm going to take the shot. So I draw back. So I draw back aiming. I check my grip. I pull back. My grip, my anchor point is the center of my nose, my chin here, and my tab comes up under my jawline, okay? And then ideally I want my arm in the same line as my arrow. And I can't tell that from this video because I'm not directly behind me, but this is a review, I'm not shooting technique, but I'm just going through it. This is on the bow. Now even there, I'm shooting like 34 pound. I can pull that thing back really easy. But as I'm aiming, you can probably see my wobbles start to come in, and that's what I'm talking about, the fatigue. So if I got that shot off quicker, I wouldn't fatigue as much and I wouldn't shake as much. And this is obviously a poundage I should be more than capable of shooting. So I'll take another shot. So this is the SF Forged riser. The most important thing with a recurve, besides the setup is critical with a recurve. You've got to have the correct arrows. If you don't, it's going to hit the riser. So setup is more critical with a recurve than a compound, okay? With a compound, you can pretty much shoot any arrow and it's going to work. And people are going to say, no, it's not. I was at the PSE factory, Pete Shepley, who owns PSE, and he's got all these arrows there he shoots. And he shoots a 70 pound full throttle. And I go, what are you shooting those arrows? Like they were 100s, which were suitable for a 50 pound. He goes, they shoot really good out of my bow. Now I can't complain, I can't argue that point. He obviously owns PSE and he's very successful. And now if he says they shoot well, then I'm sure they do. Now, you can't get away with that with a recurve. These arrows have got to flex around this riser correctly. They've got to shoot correctly, and then you've got to shoot correctly. So you need this bow set up correctly. If it's not set up correctly, you're not going to shoot any good. But if you've got the proper setup, you've got the proper arrows, it's back to you to develop the right technique. And it's about practice, and then more practice. And you can use video to videotape yourself. You can watch world champions shoot, but I mean, I find recurve a lot of fun. To be good is hard work with a recurve. I tend to shoot mainly compound because I don't have the time to spend shooting recurve, but if I did have the time, I love recurve. So the SF Forged, I think, is a really good value for money bow. It's a bow that doesn't age. It looks as good as the day I had this bow. And you've got a variety of limbs, and I'd suggest the fiberglass foam limb as an economy limb, get you started. I mean, this setup I've got is probably around $700. My arrows are probably around $200 made up. The shafts are $120. So my setup, as you see, I didn't use an arm guard because I didn't hit my arm. Probably towards $1,000, under $1,000. And this sort of setup I have is suitable for club. It'll get you to state level, but beyond that, you probably want to step up your bow and your limbs. So SF Forged, check it out and try recurve archery. And it will improve your compound archery as well, because it improves your aiming, because you're aiming the whole time, waiting for that click to go off. very easy to go from compound to recurve and back again. So some people go, oh, you've got to shoot compound or recurve. There are plenty of people who shoot both, and they shoot both extremely well. The guy who just won Vegas was a recurve shooter, shot compound for 6 months, wins Vegas, $100,000, you know. So SF Forged and the Win and Win brand is an excellent product. They have great service, they deliver pretty quick, and they have a great range of product. So Stephen Hand from Archery Supplies, thank you, bye.